My name is Lori Hurvitz. I'm the Assistant Dean of the College and Executive Director of College Programming and your host for orientation this week. I hope you are all having a wonderful week. I ordered this weather specially for you and paid the dues because stood out in the rain for 8 hours with the student directors last weekend, so I hope you all appreciate that. Thank you for attending our session on successfully transitioning your student to the college. We hope this session will provide some useful information for you that will help you understand the 4-year relationship and partnership that we really hope to develop with you while we are helping your students become successful. We are interested in hearing your concerns. We will have plenty of time for questions at the end, but I would like to introduce Nathan Blau, a 4th year in the college, who's going to speak to you a little bit about his experience.
Morning, everyone. How's it going? So, parents of the class of 2017, welcome to the University of Chicago. It's where the squirrels are cuter than the girls and more aggressive than the guys. It's where we like books more than we like you. It's where hell does freeze over, and it's where fun comes to die. And now it is the home to your sons and daughters. My name is Nathan Blau. I'm a 4th year double majoring in political science and psychology. I just finished up a summer internship with the Peace Corps, and I am from Fort Collins, Colorado. Anyone here from Colorado? Shout out, be proud. Anyone here from Fort Collins? Yeah. Which high school? Oh. I'm like about to walk out of here right now. I'm from Pooter, so you know, Pooter Fort Collins High School rivalry. No one else here knows this but us, so we'll fight it out later. All right. So when I'm not in class or doing homework, I'm out on the ice as the goalie for UChicago's men's club hockey team, or I'm on my computer playing StarCraft for UChicago's StarCraft team. For those of you who don't know, StarCraft is a computer game, and it is UChicago's only Division I sport. So, about this time last year, I was where you all are now. Now this might puzzle you because A, I said I was a 4th year, and B, I don't appear to be a father who has sent his son or daughter off to college. While I did not lie to you, I am a 4th year and I do not have any children that I know of. I was actually aimlessly wandering outside of Rockefeller Chapel when the admins came up to me and said, "Hey, are you a UChicago student?" I said, "Yeah." And they said, "Hey, do you want to make $10?" And I said, "Sure," because I don't have a job. So it turns out that the other 20 potential applicants flaked out, and I just happened to be at the right place at the right time. So here I am again. So, while I may be woefully underqualified to speak to you all, and I might only be here because UChicago is now offering me $15 this year. Yeah. I do have a story for you, and it's a story that I hope will convince you that though your students may face adversity, that adversity will yield growth and opportunity. I hope to convince you that UChicago provides support and opportunity as much as it provides a challenge. And lastly, I want to convince you that though your relationships with your students will change, they will change for the better. So my story begins 3 years ago. I was a confident 1st year, learning about all the classes I was going to take, investigating RSOs, meeting new friends, and making disastrous attempts to flirt with girls. Trust me, it's hard to flirt with girls on campus when you're walking next to your mother. So you can probably imagine how I felt in this exciting, new, and young environment after a very, very long summer with my parents. And your students probably feel the same. That's not to say that you guys are old and boring. It's just to say that you guys are comparatively old and boring. So don't be surprised if your students are a little dismissive like I was. They've spent the whole summer with you, and now they probably want to spend time with the copious number of attractive and totally not socially awkward young men and women that UChicago provides. But be prepared for anything and everything in the next few weeks. Classes will start, homework will pile up, roommates will snore, homework will pile up. That cute guy or girl that they met during O Week who they thought was the one will end up having an existential realization that the only long-term intimate relationship they have is with a calculus proof, and still, more homework will pile up. So the chances are that a lot of you will be getting calls from your students. Some will be nervous, some will be stressed, and some might be in tears. To give you some perspective, I currently call my mom once or twice a week, but in the month of October of my 1st year, I called her more than 50 times. And I have the phone record to prove it. I was struggling with many things. I found my classes to be extremely difficult. I was having problems with my health. I was having difficulties finding a solid group of friends, and I was honestly not enjoying myself. I was constantly asking myself, is UChicago right for me? And I even spent a few afternoons in Bartlett Dining Hall looking over transfer applications while gorging myself on ice cream. So this was the low point in my college career. And because of my previous relationship with my parents, I needed those long conversations with my mom to help sort through the difficulties I was facing. And that close contact worked for me. I started managing my time better, my classes became easier, I got my health under control, and I finally fit in with a fantastic group of friends. UChicago provided these things for me, and I was able to manage these things myself without my parents. But my parents were vital in helping me get through this turbulent period. And the calls did become shorter and less frequent, and I eventually found myself calling only once or twice a week to tell them about a professor's comment on a paper or about a show I had seen downtown. So my relationship with my parents changed from when I was in high school and continues to change as I face new issues in college. I have no doubt that many of your students will face several of the same issues that I did, and your students may be independent enough to deal with them on their own, or they might need more support like I did to push through it. Either way, your relationship with your student and the support you provide should aim to facilitate their growth as an independent adult. And I also want to reassure you that you're not sending your students off into an unknown and hostile world. For all the stress that the university provides, we provide an equal, if not greater, amount of support and opportunity. It's also important that you trust in the resources UChicago provides. We have amazing postgraduate planning with the Office of Career Advancement, fantastic healthcare with student health services, and a potentially unhealthy student-to-coffee shop ratio. The house system at UChicago also provides an amazing service of a family within the larger university community. I lived in Snell-Hitchcock my first year and then moved out into an apartment my second year, but I stayed very active in the house community. And right now I just need to check. Anyone have a son or daughter in Snell-Hitchcock? Shout it out, guys. All right, so I need those people to really listen. Everyone else can tune this out. Don't tune it out. We have, for the last 3 years, been battling for the IM Flag Football Championship, all right? So we have made quarterfinals 3 times, and this year is going to be the year that we make it. So if your son or daughter is in Snell-Hitchcock, and if they are also athletic, very highly unlikely, please get them in contact with me. We're going to win it this year. So I've been talking a lot about how your students' interactions and struggles will vary as they transition into college life. But this is arguably just as difficult as a time for you guys. I say arguably because if any of you think that letting your child who you've raised for 18 years go to college is as hard as the OChem sequence here, then you have a warped perception of what hard is. I know firsthand about the University of Chicago and the expected directions that are often associated with such a prestigious institution. I'm sure many of you have similar expectations for your student. And I know a lot of you are anticipating your students to major in medieval studies, early Christian literature, or art history, but don't be surprised if they end up taking a few classes from our little-known economics department. And be prepared for your students to change. If they've always been a Republican, don't be surprised if you see them reading Marx. If they've always had a thing for athletic and popular guys or girls, you really shouldn't be surprised when, come Christmas time, they bring home a nerd. There's a saying at UChicago that if you don't want to date a nerd at UChicago, you don't date at UChicago. So before I finish up, I want to share with you a few things that your students have said when I posted the question, "What do you want me to tell your parents?" in the Class of 2017 Facebook page. I received a lot of responses, most of which are too dark or too inappropriate to repeat, but I do have a few gems for you. So the first one is, "My mom's been freaking out about my GPA in college, so if you could tell her that the entire first quarter grading will be pass-fail, that'd be awesome." And then to my surprise, a few comments down, one of your other students wrote, "Wait, is first quarter grading really pass-fail?" For clarification, it is not. Next I have, "Please let them know that if their son does not immediately call, text, FaceTime, Snapchat, or email them back, that he isn't ignoring them, he's merely busy." And lastly, and I think this one's kind of sweet, is, "Mom, Dad, I have no idea what I'm doing, but that's okay, because I'm still going to try, and whatever I eventually end up doing, eventually." Coming to college for the first time may be the most momentous occasion in your students' lives, only matched perhaps by having their own children and sending them away to college as you all are doing today. But you're not just sending them to college, you're sending them to the University of Chicago. And if your students are going here, they are probably brilliant, creative, hardworking, motivated, or they're like me, and admissions made a terrible, terrible mistake. Don't worry, that doesn't happen too often. So your students have made it to the University of Chicago, and they didn't do it alone. Now that they're here, they won't be alone. Though they get their food from the dining halls and not from the home kitchen, though they bike to campus instead of being dropped off in the Suburban, their curfew is now only limited by their caffeine tolerance, and small talk consists of discussing Nietzsche's will to power, your students will still have the love and support of their parents, as well as that of the university community. So trust in UChicago, trust in your relationships, and trust in your students. It's college, right? What's the worst that could happen?
Good morning, everyone. I would say that following Nathan is one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing I do all year. He is great. My name is Linda Tartof. I am the clinical director of the Student Counseling Service. Our service is located at 5737 South University, and we have a number of ways that we can help students who are in emotional distress. I would guide you to our fantastic website, counseling.uchicago.edu. However, this morning I would really like to speak to you as a clinical director and some as a parent. I will say that I am a parent of 2 grown children who have been through college, graduate school, and now have jobs. Thank you very much. That always gets applause, and believe me, I know why. But what I want to say today is kind of talk a little bit about your progress through this incredibly arduous task of raising a child. It is hard, Nathan. It is almost as hard as the OChem sequence. But I want to use as an example probably the very overworked metaphor of learning to ride a bicycle. Because no matter how much we do in our high-tech world, our students still had to learn ride a bicycle, and very likely you helped. So thinking about high school, the first 2 years is a lot like when your child learned to ride a 2-wheeler with training wheels. If you remember the first time you put them on, they were thrilled, they were grown, this is big time, this is a big kid's bike, and they're riding around in the driveway and the sidewalk, and they're really happy. This is it, they're not babies anymore. But then they discover there's the world without training wheels. This is probably the latter part of high school. Big people, really adult people, ride with 2 wheels. So you take the training wheels off one day and you get behind that bike and you hold up your student and you start running alongside your student, running down the sidewalk, huffing and puffing and trying to entreat them to ride the bike on their own with balance. They are looking at you, they are frightened, and they are looking at you and plaintively quavering, don't let go, I'm not ready yet, please don't let go. This is high school. They might not have said that to you in so many words, but they meant it. Don't let go. But you're parents. You know that eventually you have to learn without your mom or dad hanging on to your bike, and you keep pushing, and one day you realize they're riding their bike, and you're just barely holding on. They're riding, they're proud, and they're still a little worried, and they say occasionally, please don't let go, but you know they're ready. So the summer before college comes around, and they're actually riding. You know they're riding, you know they're able to ride, and one of the things that's happening is as you watch them wobble down the road, you know they're gonna fall. Anyone who rides a bike knows kids are gonna fall. We still fall. But as you watch them now, and I'm thinking of this morning, you are watching your child ride off down the road, you're waving, you're happy, you're a little bit sad, and they're riding towards us here at the University of Chicago. They will fall on occasion. Everybody does. And I would say that the staff here at the university is very willing and able to help your child make a soft landing, to pick themselves up and get themselves back on their bicycles. So as a parent to parents, welcome to the University of Chicago. We're so thrilled that you're here. And now I'd like to introduce Katie Callow-Wright, who's one of the staff members who will help as your child continues their ride. Thank you.
Thank you and good morning. Thank you, Linda. So my name is Katie Callow-Wright. My role is to oversee, among other departments, the college housing program. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the ways that our mission and our structure support your students on a day-to-day basis and over the course of the year in their houses and in college housing. I hope that you all had a good move-in experience yesterday and your first exposure to our dining halls. the dining hall experience yesterday and today is a little bit unusual because we're feeding like 5,000 people as opposed to 3,000. And so, as you can see, we're a little bit cramped. But I hope you still got a decent meal and got a sense of how your student will rely on their housing, on their dining plan to be a member of the community, of their house, and of the larger Chicago College community. The creation of community on campus that occurs in the houses is a common experience that all students in the college have. All students who come to the college are required to live in the college houses. And it is both an important part of, it's a cornerstone of community building here on campus and in the college and for the broader university, but is also a way of supporting individual students, that each student has an opportunity to feel that they really belong in their house community, that they matter to the other students who live there. The scale of a house is a human scale. It's anywhere from 50 to 100 students, where they really can get to know everyone who lives in their house with them. They can all know each other's names. They can all think of it as a place that they can go back to and is really a home away from home during their time at Chicago. And it exists that way, not for them just as a first-year student when they are required to live in housing, and when all of them do, but if they choose to move off campus as second, third, or fourth-year students, as Nathan has done, that the house can continue to be a place that they can come back to and have as a community throughout the time here and beyond, that the bonds of friendship and the common experience that students have in the house is something that lasts forever for many people. We feel here at Chicago that the residential experience is so important that we've made it a requirement, and that we have a statement that our college faculty created many years ago to sort of help people understand why we think it's so important, why a residential college is the kind of college we seek to be here at the University of Chicago. And I want to read to you a brief excerpt from the overall statement, which you could find on the college website. And it is that in support of its educational mission, Chicago's faculty feels strongly that the experience of residence on campus is essential, in particular for first-year students. In their houses, first-year students learn about the college's academic and cultural norms and interact with a diverse group of peers, upper-class students, resident heads, and faculty members. This setting is the best possible one for supporting students in their transition to college life, the transition that we're here to talk about today. So I want to say a few things about the structure of the college house system, which is really in large part driven by the structure of the staff who live there. I hope many of whom you met yesterday. There are three positions that I'm going to describe very briefly to give you a taste of what we do here. We have resident masters, who are senior members of the faculty who live in the residence halls with their families and provide educational, social, recreational, cultural programs for and with their students. They serve as advocates among their peers on the faculty for the college housing program. They bring their friends, the faculty members, and other friends who may be traveling through Chicago who are, world-renowned thinkers, actors, artists, public intellectuals. They will bring those people into the residence halls to meet students in their homes. They may have an afternoon tea, take students out to the opera in groups of 50. They help to set an intellectual tone, and a culture of belonging and civility, and positivity in the college house system that we think is really important. The next position I want to talk about briefly are the resident heads. These are the people who actually live in the houses with your students, and they're working with that group of 50 to 75 students, or 50 to 100, on a day-to-day basis, doing everything from counseling an individual student through feeling homesick or the breakup of their relationship that they just have started and ended in the week since they came to Chicago. Or they might be helping to guide students to some of the academic resources that are available to them, through tutoring programs, or make sure that they remember how to connect with their academic advisor after this orientation week is over. They help organize intramurals among the house community. They help get students out to dinner together in the many Chicago neighborhoods that we have to offer across the city on Saturday nights or Friday nights or other parts of the week. They really are generalists, and they are not there in place of the parent. although they do things like go to the hospital with a student if they're experiencing a medical emergency, really kind of go arm in arm with a student if they need it. But they are more like a cool younger aunt or uncle, someone whose students can confide things in that they might not want to tell their parents. And I'll talk a little bit shortly about how you can expect to be in communication and what you should expect to get from them and not to get from them if you try to be in contact. The other position that's an important one is our undergraduate RAs. These are third and fourth year students in the college. They're a little bit older, but they really are, they're like Nathan in many ways. Students who have a little bit more experience can help first year students learn the Chicago ways of all kinds of things. And they do a great deal of the community development that's important in the houses, like organize study breaks among students or help get students out to play capture the flag, at 11 o'clock at night on one of the campus athletic fields, things like that. Help people really come together and make connections and bond. In addition to these staff positions that we have in the college housing system, we have a community-based dining program. All students who live in housing are also required to take a meal plan. And that isn't just because we don't have the kitchens for everybody to cook their own food, which is true logistically, but it's really more because we think that coming around the table together particularly at lunch and even more so at dinner, is a great way for students to get to know one another more, to get to know their house staff more, to have a place where they can process the experiences of the day, what they're learning in their core classes. These experiences in the houses as well as at the dining table really are intended to augment the in-classroom experiences that students have to learn what they're learning. These are the places that they can really get into the nitty-gritty of talking about what they studied that day, or even started to talk about in their seminar class. So the house table in each of the dining halls is not a required place for students to eat, but we know it's a place that students think of as a touchstone throughout the course of the day, the week, the month, the quarter, and the year. And they might float away from it at times when their schedule doesn't allow for them to be at their house table as much, or they'll eat someplace else at one of the campus cafes or other venues, but that they often do tell us that they come back to it really when they're needing it most throughout the course of the year and beyond. Resident staff eat most of their meals at the house tables, including not just the RAs and the resident heads, but also the resident masters are seen in the dining halls on a day-to-day basis. So these staff and through this dining program and other tools work very closely in collaboration with folks in Linda's area, in Susan's area, in Lori's area, in all of the parts of campus and student life and in the college that are also here to round out this really robust network of support for students. I feel very strongly that the world-class education that students get here is something that we should be able to match or support equally as well in their outside of classroom experience. And that I think we do. We've got really amazing people doing great work and highly collaboratively to support the students and help students get connected to all of the things that they may need during their time here. In terms of the interface that you can expect with resident staff and with the College Housing Office, I want to establish first that our primary obligation and relationship is to the student. So this is a transition to adulthood that they're making, and really being very different in terms of the contact that you would get as compared with high school, with people like resident heads and resident masters and staff in the College Housing Office is what you should expect. So, for example, if you were to call your son or daughter's resident head next week to ask how they're doing, they're going to probably not really exactly tell you how they're doing, and it's not because they're doing poorly or they're doing exceedingly well. It's because that's not their role. It's up to your student to tell you how they're doing. And then if you have something that's a significant concern, that you're worried that your student might be in crisis and not getting the help that they need, or that they are don't know exactly where they're supposed to be going to take their meals, for example, something very, very basic, that a call to the resident head 1 or 2 times in your student's time here would be appropriate to let the resident head know. They're not going to provide you with information back. They're going to listen to what you have to say, and they're probably going to tell you that if you want to be in further communication, that the administrators who work in the housing office are great people for you to connect with. And those are folks who are more accustomed to having an ongoing conversation with parents about things that are of a more serious nature so that they can be sure you have the information that might help you feel better about resources available to the student and how we're supporting them. So you can provide some information sparingly, because what your student tells you, they might not expect you to be telling us on this end. And we're certainly expected by the students not to be telling you a lot about their comings and goings on a day-to-day basis. Please do think about calling the housing office, the college housing staff, or me if you feel particularly alarmed by something that's going on with your student. And I hope that we can assure you, or that we can turn around and go and take some action if it's needed. One of the reasons that parents tend to call the office in these moments is because they're really alarmed that their student called them in a frustrated moment where they're feeling distressed. They want to complain, they want to vent, they're mad at their roommate because the snooze button keeps getting hit over and over again and they're not getting enough sleep, or the neighbor down the hall is practicing their saxophone inappropriately in the hall community. And the first thing that you can do, instead of jumping in to try to grab them off of that bicycle and take care of it for them, is to ask them if they've talked to anyone about it. Who have they consulted? Who have they told? And if they haven't told anybody, you should ask them who they think they should tell. And a lot of the time, a good starting off place is their resident head. That if they don't know who else to go to, if they haven't thought of telling anyone that they need help, their resident head is a great place to start. Asking the student, do you need help, is another good question. But I think even first trying to see if they've done anything for themselves, which will help them. This is a life skill. This is learning how to be more independent, how to use their own instincts, how to follow through for themselves so that they can be agents in their own problem solving, as opposed to having us or you do all of that for them. So asking them if they've gotten help and if they need help, making sure that they know how to get to it. In summary, I think it's important for you to know that the houses in the house system are a really strong base. That we hope that students have already started to connect to their houses before they even got here, that they're going to spend this week doing a lot together with their houses, that then as the quarter proceeds and the year proceeds, that they will branch out more and more and more to the broader residence hall community, to the broader community of everyone in housing and across the college. But that this is a place that they can use as a touchstone and come back to over and over, not just this year, but during their whole 4 years here at the university, and as I said before, beyond. So thank you for sharing your young people with us. They are truly the most interesting and amazing students I've ever worked with, and don't think I could probably ever go and work anywhere else again, because they just wouldn't be quite like University of Chicago students. So we appreciate that you've brought them to us and that you are entrusting them in our care for the next 4 years. Thank you very much. I'd like to go ahead and introduce Susan Art, the Dean of Students in the college, who's going to talk about academic support for your students during their time here.
Thanks, Katie. Welcome, parents. We're delighted you're here. We're particularly delighted that you have brought your children to the college. I have been working the Dean of Students office for 25 years. It's my 13th year as Dean of Students. It is an enormous privilege to work with the students that we have here in the college. They're incredibly talented. Your kids are the newest chapter in this great procession of young scholars through the college. In my area, we have a staff of 30 deans and academic advisors. Your student will be assigned to an advisor who will follow your student through 4 years and will help with, first, minimally making sure degree requirements are met within that span of time, but also help with all manner of planning, thinking about majors, minors, potential career areas, planning for summer, planning for study abroad. Often our advisors will be the people who will be directly communicating with faculty if there are issues involving a student. And sometimes we find ourselves having conversations with students about what your expectations for them are and how they, even from time to time, how to communicate back with you about their changing interests, their growing convictions about what the right direction for themselves is. We consider our students to be responsible young adults. Yes, that is sometimes a stretch, but that's the starting point. We want them to take responsibility for their own behavior. We want them to experience the results of their own mistakes. We all learn from mistakes. It's really important that they have the opportunity to do that. If you, and this follows with what Katie was saying about parents' roles in intervening with help, if you leap in to try to help your student resolve problems, the student loses the benefit of figuring out how to do that herself. She also begins to, you will begin to undermine her confidence in her ability to take charge of her own life and to solve her own problems. So it's really a delicate balance. Obviously, you want to make sure if there's really something going wrong, the student is accessing the help that she needs. And so having the kind of conversation that Katie has recommended, whereby you can say to your student, if you're really unhappy in that course, have you talked with your academic advisor? Are there some other supports that would be available to you to help with learning these concepts in chemistry and so forth? But mostly turning it over to the student to use her own capacity to communicate these things with the people who are on the scene to help her. We expect, if you call an advisor, we are always welcoming to hear what you have to say, but you need to know that the first thing the advisor will say to you is, I will be letting your student know that you've called. That's because the relationship of the student to the advisor is important to us to maintain, and we don't want the students to feel that behind their backs the parents and advisors are speaking to each other. So we will always say, we will let the student know that you've called, but at the same time, we often welcome from you, if you're concerned, sometimes a parent will flag an issue first, and so we're really grateful to hear from you when you have concerns. So as Katie has mentioned, we feel like we have a partnership with you. We have a big safety net of staff members who are here to support your students. We think of it as an sort of invisible safety net. That is, we will be on hand if in the event of a serious issue arising, but we're not necessarily intruding into student lives as adults, because we believe that at this point, students are largely learning how to live independently. One word about communication. Nathan has talked about his October of his first year and those 45 phone calls to his mom. It's perfectly reasonable for you as parents to set expectations about how often you expect to hear from your student. A weekly phone call, that kind of thing seems quite reasonable to me. It's sometimes confusing, given all the ways that we now communicate, to figure out what that right balance is. And you should know that even if you've texted your student and you don't hear back, or left a message and you don't hear back, that's perfectly normal, and it's not that your student doesn't love you anymore. They're just not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. They're 18 years old. They're thinking about their own lives. And probably in another 10 years or so, they'll be much more tuned into you as their parents and more solicitous. But right now, that's not where their minds are. So I think that you shouldn't over-interpret a lack of communication. At the same time, when your student calls you and is unhappy, I remember this with my own 3 who, as they were in college, would call very unhappy about something. I would listen. I would try to encourage them that they had the resources to manage that. But my heart would sink. I would think, oh dear, he's really unhappy. And I'd hang up the phone, and I began to realize that as soon as I hung up the phone, even though I was feeling crummy, my son was feeling much better. So it's important that you just keep that in mind, that sometimes you are playing that role, which is the role you've played all along, of reassuring, listening, lending your own confidence in your student's ability to solve his own problems for himself. So I am going to stop here. Lori Hurvitz, the very able director of the College Programming Office, is going to talk with you about how parents can be engaged in her area, and then we'll have a question session.
Thank you, Susan. So for those of you who have taken a moment already to flip through the 96-page book we handed your students yesterday about Orientation Week, you're probably wondering what happens after that. The College Programming Office is really here to support your students throughout their time in the college, not just here during O Week. We have a 4-year programming model that we use to support students throughout their time here and really help them think about the things that they need to be thinking about when they need to be thinking about them. So let us handle that pressure and know that we're on it. We will be with them when it's time to start thinking about what they're going to do over the summer, when they're going to start thinking about their major, when they should start networking with alumni, and when they should start thinking about their job after college. It's not today, but it's soon, and we will be here to help support them through that process. And there's many things that you can do to be involved in that. So I invite you all to attend Family Weekend, October 18th through 20th. Registration opens this Wednesday, and that will really be an opportunity for you to get a peek inside your students' life here. You will get to attend model classes with some of our faculty members. There will be information sessions for things like study abroad and career advancement so that then you can start thinking about what their student is going to do over the summer and after they graduate. And also, it's homecoming weekend, so there's a football game and a tailgate party, and it's just a great way for you to come and see your child when they're maybe a little bit less stressed, when you're a little bit less stressed, and really see some of the opportunities that the college has to offer. In addition to that, I'm sure by now you've all figured out where the parents' website is, parents.uchicago.edu. I know from the number of hits you've been actively using it all summer. That will continue to be a resource for you throughout your students' time in the college. You can always go there to find information and get your questions answered about different topics. And if you feel like there's something missing, please let us know because we're always looking to increase the site. This fall, we're also launching a new quarterly newsletter, so you'll be seeing that appearing in your email boxes. And it's another time for us to be able to reach out to you and provide you information about what's happening on campus while you're at home. If you are concerned you are not receiving this information, you should have your student make sure that your contact information is correct in their student portal, and we will make sure to get you on all the appropriate lists. The University of Chicago also wants to be your community. You are a member of this community as a parent of an incoming student. Many of you are also alumni, and we want this to be an intellectual home for you so that you can focus on your own interests and things that you want to accomplish while your student is here as well. We have an active and new online parent community that you can access through the university parents website. That is a place where you can connect with things happening in your hometown, where you can connect with interests for your own careers and your own personal intellectual pursuits. There are a number of events happening all over the world sponsored by the university and the Alumni Association that we hope that you will choose to attend. Everything from lectures to travel trips and just receptions happening all over the place. So we invite you to attend those when they're in your area. There's a number of places that parents can volunteer as members of our community, and particularly with career advancement. If you work for an organization that can take an intern or post full-time opportunities for our graduates, we welcome that and as a way to connect you to our community and have an opportunity to meet students from all over the world as well. One of the first opportunities you will have to get a peek inside your students' education and learn a little bit about what really the values are here is this Thursday night we'll be webcasting the annual Aims of Education address. The provost, Thomas Rosenbaum, is going to be giving the address this year, and it's really a student's first peek at what a liberal education is about and why it's important. And we know that for many of you who are concerned about what your students are going to do with their medieval studies degree, that this is a great way for you to understand the value of a liberal education as well. So Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, you will be able to tune in to watch the Aims of Education address. It will be webcasted, and you'll be able to find the link for that on the parents' website. I don't think I have any more comments at this time, so we are going to turn it into a Q&A. So I want to warn anybody, in case you are a member of the Witness Protection Program, this session is being videotaped. So if you have a question that you do not want to be live online, you should be sure to ask it after the fact. We also ask that you have questions that are more that the general population will want to hear, and all of the panelists will be here afterwards if you have any particular questions about your student. So Thomas, my trusty green shirt, I'm sure you've seen our students running around this week, has a microphone, so if you have a question, please raise your hand and he will come to you. I know you all have a lot of questions. Way in the back. He runs. Watch him go.
I wondered how the academic advisors were selected for each student.
The academic advisors are generalists. They are prepared to do academic advising across the whole curriculum for any major, and students are assigned randomly to the academic advisor. I want to just say something that I should have said in my comments that I missed, which is this, that in terms of communication, my communication with you, if you have signed the FERPA release form, I will be sending notices of students going on and off probation or being suspended for academic or disciplinary reasons. Very few people get those notices. Only 30 students or so every quarter are put on probation. But I will, regardless of whether that form is in the student's file, I will contact you. I promise to contact you if there's a significant health or safety concern involving your student. You will then get a call from me or another dean in my office. So I just want to let you know that it will not be the case that your student is ill and goes to the hospital and you don't know that that's happening. We will certainly be informing you of that.
Can our students give us access to seeing their grades?
There is a electronic transcript that a student can order for free at any point, but that's the student who needs to order it. But they can direct it to your email address. And some parents just say they want to see that after every quarter, and that's completely between you and your student.
Going back to the advisory staff, how stable is the staff in that? Is there turnover? I mean, can I safely expect to have the same advisor for 4 years?
There is some turnover. It's an office of mostly young professionals. They've gone, many of them, in academic advising as a career path. But there is some turnover, so sometimes, unfortunately, students do need to be reassigned. We take care to make sure that that transition goes well, and the new advisor is as prepared as the previous advisor. It's unfortunate, but it does sometimes happen.
Thomas, we had some questions up here before.
I was just curious, how many people are usually assigned per advisor?
An advisor has about 260 students over four classes. So entering number of students is 70 or so, something like that, 65, 70. And advisors actually do get to know the names of each student, a lot about them, because over 4 years there are a lot of contacts.
I'm interested in resident heads. Are they graduate students? What else do they do besides being resident heads?
Well, becoming a resident head is a little bit like joining the Army. It's a lifestyle, not a job. So but their primary reasons for being at the university typically are as graduate students, advanced graduate students from all disciplines. So they are not people who are housing professionals or intending to go into housing as a career, although every once in a while somebody does go astray and leave academia and become a full-time student life administrator after being in the resident head role. But we've got folks from, the physical sciences, biological sciences, humanities, social sciences, some of the professional schools. So the majority are academics. Some are university junior members of the faculty or staff. But mostly graduate students. It's a great way for a graduate student family to have a stronger connection to campus life, because it really is a whole family endeavor. When there are couples, they are jointly appointed to the position, even if one person doesn't have an affiliation with the university. And when they're families, the little people believe that they have as much of a role in running the house matters and business as the grown-ups do. And you may have seen some of that yesterday as you were traveling about the halls.
How do career advisors work in relation to academic advisors?
So academic advisors do lots of referrals out, and certainly the career office is one of the places that students are referred in a very regular way. Academic advisors do some of the foundational career advising, conversations with students about potential areas of career interest and development of those. This year, for the first time, the Career Office also is assigning every incoming student to a member of their staff as a designated career advisor. And that's someone who's available to your student if the student wants to have a conversation at any point, but certainly an early conversation with a member of the career advising staff. It's someone who the student knows the name of this person and how to contact them, and that they can go in and have a conversation with that person as well.
Hi, if you'll let us know if there's a real problem with the student without the FRVO release form, then what does the FRVO release form do for us, and where do we find one?
The FERPA release form should have been in the materials that were sent to you in the parent packet over the summer. It provides communications, just a narrow set of communications. That is, when a student goes on academic probation or off academic probation, or is suspended for academic or disciplinary reasons. So it's it's not very often that we send these communications out to parents. It's a small number of these. If you need to sign one, there should be a link on the parents' web page if you don't have one.
Actually, the place to find it is on the orientation website, orientation.uchicago.edu. There is a section for parents, and if you look at the summer communications, there's an electronic version of that mailing there. If you have trouble finding it, you can contact the college programming office. Excuse me? I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say thank you. Yesterday's move-in was extremely smooth. All of the events yesterday, the session this morning, this session, very informative. We're going home that our son's in a comfortable place, so thank you.
Thank you.
We have time for a few more questions.
Is there a separate advising system for students who have a particular pre-professional interest, like pre-med or pre-law?
Yeah, there's not a separate academic advising system, but there are programs designed to help students prepare for careers in medicine, law, business, and so forth. So those are some of our UChicago careers in program. Students get involved with those.
Well, as so many people are leaving, do we have one more question? We'll take this last question. All of the panelists will remain if you have additional questions afterwards.
Yeah, could you give an overview of what services are available in the counseling office?
Sure. Is this on? Mm-hmm. The counseling service offers short-term counseling or psychotherapy. We offer medication management that is available for the duration of a student's stay here. We have academic study skills programming to help with issues of procrastination, reading, and just some ways to support students who are worried about their academic performance. We offer groups in different arenas. We have a number of different kinds of groups, and I'd be glad to tell you a little bit more about them later. And then we offer referral services. In case your student chooses to see a provider outside of the counseling center, for instance, a student would like long-term psychotherapy or counseling, since we can only offer the short-term counseling, which is, there's no number on it, but we can't see your student for the duration of their stay here as a counselor. We can offer advice and consultation for a provider in the community. We have many good, solid counseling providers. We also have, Katie reminded me, we have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week, 365-day on-call system available through the counseling center. So should your student have a problem, should anyone in housing have a concern, a mental health concern, you can reach us anytime through an emergency number, and we'll be glad to talk to you. That's something kind of that we're proud of.
Any last questions? Oh, one all the way in the back. As Thomas runs back there, I will remind you that lunch is beginning at noon in your assigned dining location. You should meet up with your student and have lunch, and then we will see you at opening convocation this afternoon at 3 p.m. Last question.
Thank you so much for hosting this. I have 2 questions. First one is, how safe is it for the student to, let's say, study late in the evening and walk back to the dorm? Secondly, did the school keep statistics of the crime rate happening in the campus that you can inform the parents of those?
Yes. So to answer your second question first, if you're interested in learning about crime statistics in our area, the university has a website, commonsense.uchicago.edu. We are required by law to publish all the statistics about crime in our area by the federal government, and so that information is found there. We will spend a significant amount of time with your students this week talking about safety and security on campus during orientation. I think what we try to remind students is that many of them are coming from suburban or rural areas, and we are in a city. This is an urban environment, and we try to make sure they are aware of the resources available to them and to make good decisions about where they're going and what they're doing. So not walking alone at 2 o'clock in the morning, talking on their iPhone or listening to music. And so we do think campus is safe. It's actually a very safe neighborhood in Chicago. I know that Chicago gets a bad rap sometimes, but we have an extensive police force. We spend a lot of time thinking about student security on campus, and if students are making good decisions, they will be fine.
The Common Sense website that Lori referenced not only has statistics, but it also has a great deal of information about the resources, the tools, and the sort of prevention strategies that we encourage students to employ in order to be safe here on campus and in the city at large.
Okay. Well, we will be here if you have any additional questions. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.